Does wind power present a threat to national security? One Air Force general says it's possible. Power bills are going up in one area of the nation. Find out where consumers will shell out a carbon surcharge. And the UN speaks out on trade bans and polar bears.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good morning, I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report on this 19th day of March 2010. Is wind power a threat to national security? The military worries that wind farms can disrupt or block radar designed to detect threats and protect American skies. Rotating turbine blades have been shown to at times give false radar signatures. An Air Force general told Congress federal agencies need to work better together on a formal vetting process to prevent wind projects from being built where they will interfere with radar defenses. He said wind and utility companies should be required to do early checks during the approval process to make sure that plants built will not interfere with local radar. The FAA reviews wind farm projects and can flag problems, but it can't enforce a change or prevent a wind farm from being approved if a change is not made. The North American Aerospace Defense Command is putting together a team to determine the impact of proposed wind energy projects near military radar. Utility officials in Los Angeles have approved a carbon surcharge for customers. The Department of Water and Power agreed to Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa's plan to charge residents $2.50 a month and businesses about 20% more for the rest of next year, beginning April 1st. The mayor says the money will allow the city to invest in clean, renewable energy, implement efficiency programs, and create about 18,000 jobs over the next decade. Utility officials say it'll also allow DWP to compensate for failing in previous years to make customers take on a larger share of the cost of switching to renewable energy. A large interstate power project has won conditional federal approval, but regulators still want more information about the Tres Amigas superstation. FERC has given this project the go-ahead to sell transmission access at negotiated rates, but stopped short of approving its goal of uniting the nation's three major electric grids at a 14,000-acre hub in New Mexico. Managers of the project say that it would use superconductors to connect the eastern, western, and Texas grids, improving transmission for renewable power and eliminating regional wholesale price disparities. But Texas operates its power market independently from the rest of the U.S., does not take part in the interstate electricity sales that FERC regulates. The chairman of FERC, John Wellinghoff, says Tres Amigas didn't provide enough detail about the jurisdictional waiver that it sought, but the company can resolve that issue in a future filing. Montana is looking to coal for its next financial windfall. Against major environmental protests, the state has agreed to pay Arch Coal $86 billion to mine more than 8,000 acres in the Otter Creek tracts. Arch Coal says this deal will help it increase its coal exports to Asia, and the company says it will sell into the U.S. market. Montana's governor, Brian Schweitzer, says the state stands to gain billions of dollars in taxes and royalties over the next couple of decades on top of the upfront cash, but protests are mounting. Police arrested several environmentalists this past week who tried to disrupt the land board meeting. Protesters say opening up the Otter Creek tracts would destroy a pristine ranching valley with a new railroad and would ultimately release billions of tons of greenhouse gases. Mexico's Pemex says that new oil fields it discovered 2 years ago in the Campeche Sound of the Gulf of Mexico could yield more than 2 billion barrels of oil. In its latest report, the company says its 3P reserves, that is proven, probable, and possible oil reserves, amounted to 43.6 billion barrels of oil. At a ceremony commemorating the 72nd anniversary of Pemex's nationalization, Mexico's president, Felipe Calderón, said government investment in Pemex has increased threefold since 2000 to $20.9 billion this year. Colorado lawmakers took a major step this week to help clean up nuclear waste from the state's uranium mills and mines. The state approved a bill that requires mine and mill owners to clean up the uranium mining sites immediately instead of waiting until they finish production or until their facilities are out of service. Out of 11 uranium mines, 9 are under the control of the federal government, and the federal government has already spent $1 billion. UN officials have rejected international trade bans on polar polar bears. This move is a disappointment to U.S. trade officials who supported the ban, but they are hoping they will consider another move to protect the bears. A lot of scientists say that polar bears are at risk because of shrinking Arctic ice caused by climate change. But the UN Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, known as CITES, acknowledged that it did not take climate into account in the decision. But the U.S. delegation will ask the body next week to consider a resolution that would make climate change a factor in future decisions. Assistant Interior Secretary Tom Strickland says once that measure is approved, polar bears will be the first species to be considered under that standard. Here's a look at goings-on around the Beltway today. Starting at 8:30, EPA started the final day of its three-day symposium on environmental justice at the Washington Convention Center. That is the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us here in the Energy News Center. For any suggestions or comments about our programming on Clean Skies News, you can email us at contact@cleanskies.com. We want to hear from you, and you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, too. I'm Susan McGinnis. You're watching Clean Skies News.